Parenting styles aren't just abstract theories. They are blueprints. Blueprints that silently shape how children learn to trust, how they handle fear, how they build relationships, and how they see themselves in the world. And yet, most parents aren't even aware of the style they're using. Introduced by developmental psychologist Diana Baumrind in the 1960s and later expanded by researchers, the four major parenting styles, authoritarian, permissive, neglectful, and authoritative, continue to define modern childhood outcomes. The effects, subtle at first, but over time they impact everything from academic achievement to emotional regulation, from self-worth to how children resolve conflict as adults. These aren't just parenting strategies. They're predictive frameworks for future behavior. And here's the truth. Every parent, whether conscious of it or not, leans into one of these four archetypes. Some bounce between them, but the one that dominates becomes the child's emotional foundation. So, what's the difference between raising a rule follower and raising a thinker? Between raising a child who fears mistakes and one who learns from them? It starts with understanding the four styles, beginning with the one built on control. 1. Authoritarian parenting. High expectations, low warmth. In an authoritarian household, rules aren't suggested. They're absolute. Obedience is the currency, and deviation is quickly corrected. The voice of the parent is final, often backed by consequences delivered swiftly and without explanation. On the surface, authoritarian parenting can look effective. Children from these homes often appear disciplined, polite, and high-achieving. But underneath, the data tells a more complex story. A 2020 study published in Child Development found that children raised with authoritarian discipline had significantly higher cortisol levels, stress hormones, even when they followed the rules. These children may follow instructions, but they do so from fear, not understanding. And over time, that fear can erode emotional resilience. Instead of developing internal motivation, they rely on external control. Instead of problem solving, they seek to avoid punishment. Researchers consistently find links between authoritarian parenting and increased levels of anxiety, social withdrawal, and in some cases, aggression. According to a meta-analysis of 51 studies, these children are more likely to internalize problems or explode under pressure. And while some become perfectionists, desperate to please, others rebel entirely. Especially in adolescence, when autonomy naturally increases, children raised under rigid control often push back with force. The very obedience that once seemed like a success becomes unstable under scrutiny. If rules are meant to guide behavior, what happens when they silence a child's voice? When structure becomes suffocation? Children raised in authoritarian homes may perform, but they rarely feel seen. And that disconnect can follow them into adulthood, manifesting in fear of authority, difficulty setting boundaries, or replicating the same parenting style they once resented. So if authoritarian parenting can create achievers, why does it often leave them emotionally stranded? 2. Permissive parenting. When warmth lacks limits. If authoritarian parenting is rigid, permissive parenting is the opposite, flexible to a fault. In these homes, rules are loose. Enforcement is rare, and children often operate as their own decision makers. Parents in this category are nurturing and affirming, but often reluctant to say no. To the outside world, permissive parenting may seem progressive. There's laughter, freedom, emotional openness, but beneath the surface, a different pattern emerges, one of inconsistency, blurred boundaries, and emotional dysregulation. In a longitudinal study by the University of New Hampshire, children raised by permissive parents were more likely to exhibit behavioral problems, struggle with impulse control, and experience difficulty in academic environments. Not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked structure. Permissive parenting is often rooted in good intentions, to give children a voice, to break generational cycles, to avoid the harshness they themselves experienced. But when warmth is not matched by boundaries, children are left with emotional vocabulary, but no internal compass. They may develop a strong sense of entitlement, confusion around consequences, or difficulty respecting authority figures. Studies also show a higher risk of substance abuse and low frustration tolerance among these children, particularly during adolescence, when structure becomes crucial for safe decision-making. One common misconception is that permissive parenting builds confidence, but in reality, children without consistent expectations may feel uncertain about where they stand, leading to anxiety and insecurity masked as independence. Imagine a child who never has to clean up their toys, do chores, or meet bedtime routines. That child may feel empowered today, but unprepared tomorrow. Life eventually demands boundaries. Without practice, the adjustment can feel like a collision. So if permissive parenting nurtures emotional openness, why does it often lead to emotional instability? Left unchecked, this style can raise children who are emotionally articulate, yet behave behaviorally unmoored, able to express their feelings but not manage them. 3. Neglectful parenting, the void that echoes. Unlike the previous styles, neglectful parenting is defined not by what is done, but by what isn't. It's characterized by emotional detachment, minimal involvement, and a lack of both responsiveness and expectations. The parent isn't overly strict or overly kind, they're simply absent. Neglectful parenting isn't always intentional. In many cases, it stems from chronic stress, unresolved trauma, substance abuse, or mental health struggles. Some parents are overwhelmed. Others were never parented themselves, but the result is the same: children raised in emotional isolation. According to research published in the journal Development and Psychopathology, neglect has the most detrimental long-term effects of all parenting styles, including significantly altered brain development in regions responsible for decision-making, empathy, and emotional regulation. These children often become hyper-independent, not out of strength, but survival. They learn early not to rely on others, because no one reliably shows up. School performance drops, social development stalls, emotional expression becomes a foreign language. What does it look like when a child is raised without attention, affirmation, or accountability? Sometimes it's obvious: missed meals, poor hygiene, chronic absences. Other times it's subtle: a child who never seeks help, one who never cries, even when they're hurt, one who laughs in moments that should bring tears. In classrooms and clinics, these children are often described as quiet, withdrawn, or flat. But under that surface is a desperate need to be noticed, one that's often masked by detachment or disruptive behavior. Studies show neglectful parenting is linked to the highest rates of depression, low self-esteem, substance abuse, and difficulty forming secure relationships in adulthood. It doesn't just impact behavior, it reshapes identity. These children often struggle to answer one question that most others take for granted: what does it feel like to matter? So what happens when children are left to raise themselves, not by choice, but by necessity? 4. Authoritative parenting, where boundaries and belonging meet. Among the 4 parenting styles, authoritative parenting consistently stands out as the most balanced and the most beneficial. It blends structure with support, expectations with empathy, and guidance with genuine connection. Authoritative parents set clear rules, but they also explain them. They say no, but they also say, "I understand." This approach isn't permissive and it's not harsh. It's consistent, respectful, and developmentally attuned. A 2022 meta-analysis published in Frontiers in Psychology concluded that children raised in authoritative homes showed the highest levels of emotional intelligence, academic achievement, and social competence across cultures and income levels. The magic isn't in perfect parenting, it's in intentionality. Authoritative parents actively teach their children how to think, not just what to do. They encourage autonomy but provide scaffolding. They model emotional regulation rather than demand obedience through fear. This style thrives on communication. When a child is upset, their feelings are acknowledged, while still holding them accountable for their behavior. When a rule is enforced, the why is offered alongside the consequence. Children in these homes grow up knowing that love and limits are not opposites, but partners. What happens when a child is both guided and heard? When discipline is delivered not as punishment, but as teaching. They don't just learn to follow rules, they learn to reflect, to negotiate, to fail safely and recover thoughtfully. Authoritative parenting creates a secure base, a psychological anchor that helps children explore the world with confidence, resilience, and empathy. Impact over time. Research from the American Psychological Association reports that children raised with authoritative parenting are more likely to delay gratification, show leadership in peer groups, and perform better academically. They're also less likely to suffer from anxiety, depression, or behavioral disorders. This style doesn't eliminate struggle, but it equips children to meet it with tools instead of fear. So if authoritative parenting offers the healthiest outcomes, why is it the least modeled in homes with high stress? The answer may lie in its demands. It requires time, emotional energy, and the ability to self-regulate as a parent. But the payoff? It lasts a lifetime. Conclusion: the style that sticks. Every parent, at some point, borrows from all 4 parenting styles. There are days when we're more lenient than we planned, or more reactive than we'd like. But over time, one style begins to dominate, and that style becomes a child's emotional blueprint, not just for how they behave, but for how they believe. Believe in themselves, believe in relationships, believe in the world. Parenting isn't about perfection, it's about pattern. The consistent way a child is responded to, taught, corrected, held. Those patterns don't just influence childhood, they echo through adulthood. Multiple longitudinal studies have found that parenting style is one of the strongest predictors of a child's long-term mental health and relationship quality, second only to socioeconomic status. And the style that leads to the healthiest outcomes isn't the easiest. It's the most intentional. Authoritative parenting offers children what many adults are still learning to give themselves: boundaries, validation, accountability, safety. So the question isn't, which style are you today? It's, which style do you repeat tomorrow and the day after that? Because parenting doesn't end when the house is quiet. It lives on in the voice inside a child's head, long after the parent has left the room. If this video helped you understand your parenting approach, or sparked a shift in how you see it, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video to let the algorithm know this topic matters. Subscribe to the channel for more research-based parenting breakdowns that meet you where you are. And drop a comment below. Which parenting style did you grow up with? And how has it shaped who you are today? Because the way we raise our kids shapes the kind of world they'll grow up to build. Let's build it with intention.